What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going to the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we are here to dive a little bit deeper into the San Francisco 49ers game, specifically part of the game plan offensively in this game. And I want to give some ideas because, well, this is a massive game, so why not? Like, if there's things that I want to talk about, we should talk about them. Also, we do have some news that released today, so it ties in really well with a conversation that I had on Friday with Grant Cohn, who covers the San Francisco 49ers. We did a show on BetUS TV, and he brought up a suggestion as a guy that follows the 49ers of how the Lions should maybe do things offensively in this game. And I think it was a really good discussion. We had some really good back and forth there. And I think, we agreed on a lot of things. But one point that he brought up, and this is something that we talked about in our preview as well, was specifically going at Ambry Thomas, right? A guy that has struggled a little bit in coverage. Romeo Doubs, he had some real struggles with top of the routes, in and out of breaks. Outside of that, they have Diamador Lenore, they have Travarius Ward, they have very physical corners that are successful at the catch point. They have 22 interceptions on the season in the regular season. So it's a very successful back end at taking the football away, and they're very physical in the back end. But they can struggle a little bit with speed, a little bit with quickness at the top of the route, a little bit with sticking with guys through the top of the route. We got to see that especially against the Packers, but we've seen that a few times. However, one of the things that he thought going into the game is that, man, if I were the Lions, I would play light personnel and try to force this defense to play nickel all the time. That way Ambry Thomas is on the field and I can go at him over and over and over. Now, obviously that's not like that simple, right? You can't just, hey, we're putting 11 personnel, we're going to throw it every play to Thomas, right? They'll adjust, they'll give help, those kind of things if that was the case. However, I do think it's a very interesting idea because it makes a lot of sense when you look at this defense where their strength is as a team. And today, it was reported, according to ESPN, that Zach Ertz would not be activated for this game. Now, I'm not sure if this is, that he's not ready, he's not up to the playbook yet, or maybe this is something that the Lions said schematically, we don't want to do that. I kind of doubt that. I think if he was here and ready to go, I don't think that they wouldn't choose to have Zach Ertz up. I mean, if anything, I would just have Anthony Firkser potentially just be down for this game because the Lions only have two tight ends. They only have two. There are only two that they actually are going to have up if Zach Ertz doesn't come up, which he is not, is going to be Sam Laporta and Anthony Firkser. We did get to see a little bit of Anthony Firkser in our last game against Tampa Bay, and I will show some clips, but he wasn't utilized that much in the pass game, right? That's expected. He's not a very big pass game threat. Zach Ertz is a much bigger pass game threat. But with this news, it got me to thinking we should really discuss some of the strategies the Lions could come in with for this game. So that's the news side. Now I want to show some clips, okay? Now this isn't going to be like your normal All-22 video where we're reviewing everything, but we didn't really have one of those this week for the Lions, so I think this just makes sense. But I specifically want to talk about some of the ideas that I could have for the Lions offensively that we may see. Also some of the challenges that San Fran is definitely going to present. So a lot of different things. We'll start here. Now this is one of the things in zone coverage. So again, San Fran lets us play a lot of zone. They also do play a really good amount of cover 3, especially on early downs as well, and Tampa Bay kind of lived in that in this game. We may not get that much of it, but they do play a lot of cover 3 defensively, especially on early downs. But here in this first example, they're going to go to that zone coverage. Now, one thing I thought the Lions did really well, and like I said, you can always find holes in zone coverage. A lot of times it's can you get there, and also do you have the right game plan or the right play set up to beat that specific type of zone coverage. But in a case like this, one thing I thought the Lions did really well was overloading this one side of the field. That can defeat zone coverage because it's balanced. However, let's show an example like this because it worked, and then it didn't work the second time around. But you could see the idea on paper and how it makes a ton of sense. The issue that really threw off the second time was pressure. So there's one of the challenges Lions are going to be presented with, and it was on the interior. The positive is Graham Glasgow's here, Frank's here. But again, K.O.'s starting at left guard, so he's going to have a big game because they have real interior pressure players. But watch the design like this for the Lions. So again, they're going into that cover 3 defense. The first thing for Jared Goff, right, they create this one-on-one at the bottom. Now, you are getting Zion McCollum on this matchup. As Lions go 11 personnel, you get the extra defensive back on the field. You're only getting, as you can see, six players on the D-line / the off-ball linebacker position. So you get 5 defensive backs here. You get this nickel look from Tampa Bay. So the first thing they want to create, and this is something that they consistently do, is they're fine with getting St. Brown one-on-one. They love to create that matchup, get the ball quickly. That can be read 1. Again, a lot of this is progression-based, so it's a lot of timing. Like, okay, 1 to 2 to 3. So it's all about Goff's footwork and staying on time. So here, the first read is, let's see if I get St. Brown. Now you can see him seemingly grab his face mask, but that's taken away. Goff doesn't like it. Linebacker sitting down on this play. So he goes away from that. So now he's 1, now he's on a 2. Now here's what the Lions Lions did, and I loved this. Okay, now second thing I would also point out here, and it's also David Montgomery. One thing that could be crucial, you see how he stays in there in case there's a blitz and then he leaks out. A piece like that, whether that's the Lions putting the running back on the line of scrimmage or tight end and then letting them release so that they can chip and then go, or whether that's having them stand in, chip, and then take off, that could be crucial. The problem is the route gets out later, so you have to set up the routes so that they can get out later. They don't have to get out immediately into coverage to make them successful. So that will be one of the things I think the Lions are going to have to figure out. But in a case like this, they take away one. Now, number two, watch this. And this is something we saw against Baltimore. Now, again, a lot of the pressure was the issue against Baltimore because sometimes we didn't know where it's coming from. We couldn't get the ball off. But what the Lions did for a lot of the second-level routes against really good linebackers, because they do have good coverage linebackers as well in zone, was they would run routes like this to Josh Reynolds. See how he runs that out and then he sits it down and breaks back? He kind of runs like a little bit of a whip route back inside. It's a little bit delayed, but it's all about the timing, because as he runs the out route, he's not trying to get through this as fast as possible because he runs this out route to pull the flat defender, but also at the same time he can pull that off-ball linebacker. So if the off-ball linebacker goes that way, now Goff can come back and hit Jamison Williams on the play. You also then at the same time have the running back release out. So now it's 2-on-2. So instead of being 2-on-1, it becomes 2-on-2. Here comes the running back. So linebacker now sees that. Okay, let me get out there. Now that opens up Jamison Williams on the dig route behind the coverage. So you have the 1, 2, 3 that Goff can get to. Now, here's one of the things, maybe not this exact play. This play didn't go extremely well, but it's one of the things that I do expect to see. We saw it against Baltimore. I would expect to see it in this game as well, especially on early downs to try to just keep them off balance as best as possible. Now, this is where the Lions like to go heavier personnel, and you can see there's more ways to do that than just 2 tight ends. In this case, they're going with a fullback and a tight end. But one thing that the Lions, I think, will do in this game is misdirection, move the pocket. Here's an example of that, because they still had good interior players on this front. So misdirection, move the pocket. Now, Cabinda, he tries to kind of cut block. The edge defender doesn't get a good block here, so Goff has to kind of check it down to him on the play. But that's one thing that I expect the Lions to do just design-wise. Maybe not that exact play, but stuff like that in this game. This is where the Lions had success overloading a side of the field against a team that was covered very heavy. And this is where the Lions are really good. They're really good at getting a sense of your tendency and having beaters for that. But in a case like this, watch this. There's a couple examples of this. So first thing here, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the first key. You see how Devin White is opening up on this play? So as St. Brown runs vertical, he's going to pull White with him because like San Fran, what do they do well? They get depth. Now, also what San Fran does well is they're going to pass things off. But you can see he's running away from the safety. The outside route, Josh takes the corner, so now the safety has to step over top. But you do pull the depth from the linebacker, just enough to get the timing down. So he's key one. He's key one, he takes off. Okay, great. You took one off-ball linebacker out. Second key is this. You have the flat, you have the hook zone curl defender here. So then it's the two-man game. It's the sit-down route by the tight end, and it's the level right behind him with Sam Laporta. So they basically just overload one side of the field with 3 guys. They pull out the defense, and now Goff has an opportunity to pick one of the two. If the linebacker sits down underneath, he can fire it back to Sam Laporta. So you have that little setup there. That's one of the examples we've seen the Lions do things like that. Again, pass protection becomes key, because even in a 4-man rush, which San Fran's going to do a lot of, you have to be able to hold up long enough. Another example, just in another way. I key on Jamison Williams here on the backside, because we're going to see with Jamison, he's going to do something. We see a ton. He's going to delay. He's going to walk up, and then he's going to sprint across the middle of the field. He's doing that, as you'll see here, again, to just outnumber the team. So first thing, I believe this was a 3rd and short, but it's a short yardage situation. Now, Lions tried it a second time, and they took a sack. But it's pretty simple on the front side, right? It's pretty simple to overload this, right? Utilize St. Brown on the motion out. He takes this deep curl route, and then inside of that, you have Josh Reynolds who's going to run and dig right over the middle of the field right there. So, again, the flat's going to go out with it. He's going to pass it off to the outside third corner. Now here comes the flat underneath with Sam Laporta. So the question is, how aggressive is McCollum, right? Is he going to sit back and get depth because he knows that route is right behind him, or is he going to dive down to the play? If he dives down, now it becomes this guy. This off-ball linebacker becomes the key, because either then you throw the curl or you come back to the middle of the field. So on this case, he doesn't dive down to the flat. He stays with depth. Goff has room to throw the flat, and he fires into the flat. Now you can see Vita Vea winning, but the ball is out fast enough here. Then on the backside, to overload it, use Jamison. He delays, and then he takes off middle of the field. So on a play like this, the flat, then you have the 1-2, and then at the very last option, right? Let's say, you take away the flat here. He sits down, linebacker slides over. Then all of a sudden, here comes Levante David. He sees the dig. He slides over top. Now you have Jamison Williams, because of the running back, again, deciding, it's all about timing with this offense, when to leak out. Now you have Jamison Williams who's dragging the middle of the field, where if you're like 1-2, don't love it, now you can flip it back middle field. Now Jamison's running away, and now you have that high-low created for the situation. And again, they use Montgomery to take that flat defender. Those are kind of the things the Lions do. Again, the biggest challenge is pass pro. This is kind of off topic, but middle blitz against Goff doesn't tend to work. I'll just say that, meaning that if you're not rushing and then dropping to get that defender back, this kind of thing doesn't really work in zone. So that's a positive Lions have. The Lions pick it up a pass pro, which they do an excellent job here. You can see Taylor Decker getting out on the edge, picking this up, picking up the 5-man rush. And once they lose that slot underneath, you have 2 guys underneath, and you have that kind of middle field exposed because they're basically just matching up here now underneath with a guy like Laporta, and he makes his move, middle field's exposed, Goff gets it off, pass protection sound, and he get a big chunk. So we saw this years ago. I remember Minnesota, Shane Zylstra had the big dig route. Now here against Baltimore, this is where they gave us problems. Slot blitzing.
You also notice here the Lions do not leave the running back to even show to pick up and pass pro. See, I think this is one of the things the Lions probably learned from is immediately having him release because you don't know where the blitz is coming from. If he immediately releases, you give that simulated pressure, but they're still bringing it off the left side. They're just overloading it. Unless that O-line shifts, which they're not showing it because they're bringing it from the slot and a backer, the running back releases, there's no chance on this. We're going to show on the next clip, and I think rightfully, you see Goff kind of look to the tight end to break that out route because he's saying quickest option on the play, flat out, but also we've seen the linebacker cheat over top, so he's thinking, let me wait for the tight end. But that doesn't open. Here's where Goff can help us. Now, this is a little bit different because the linebacker that was initially looked like he was matched with Monty, the other linebacker came over, so this was a little bit easier, but it was the sense of just throw the flat then. Just throw it at the ground at the flat at worst, but get it out to the flat in these spots. But again, San Fran's not known for big-time blitzing.
Different spots they were blitzing, and we weren't picking it up, and you get sacked. But this is the kind of thing that I expect to see. We saw this 2 years ago when we played San Fran, right? 2021, we opened the season against San Fran. We saw things like this. Maybe less of it, right? We may see less of it now, but where you bring the tight end, you're showing, okay, we're going to go that way, right? It's one of the tendencies Lions have. Misdirection, fake, or with them playing zone, no one's directly matched up with St. Brown, so now he just runs behind the coverage. Kyle Hamilton does a nice job getting in a solid position, but as long as he is, you still are able to create a big completion out of misdirection, and again, that also helps the offensive line because you're moving the offensive line, right? The only way that this thing gets thrown off, really, is if they blitz and come straight down, but again, you see the edge rusher here, he sees the pulling tight end, so he doesn't have the discipline to get upfield. He tries to track it down, knowing what the Lions want to do. So playing off their own tendencies to create kind of that crossing route, and that's something I expect to see in some shape in this game. The Lions will have some form of that to have some success. Now here's the second time. Lions run the same concept. This one's taken away. Notice the difference on this play. The interior pressure is the main difference here. So again, St. Brown one-on-one. Goff looks there. Boom. Doesn't like it. It's not open. Linebacker sitting on top. So he's like, all right, let me come back to 2. So 2, we see underneath. Now you see Josh Reynolds. He's running the out, and then he's going to whip it back inside. So he's kind of the delayed route. We saw a lot of this against Baltimore because, again, for them coverage, their key was take away the middle of the field. So we had to delay things to create levels that were open against good linebackers. So you delay it here with Josh. So Goff can look that way. Linebacker stays with depth. The third thing that he would come back to, if he doesn't like that middle field, is coming back to the whip route to Josh because the linebacker's now deeper. Now you can check it underneath. And, again, you have this flat where this flat defender can't carry. So now you create a 1 versus 2. So Lions always have ways to get guys open. The challenge is the pass protection. That's where the key is going to come into play against this zone coverage team because it may not be like, I don't know what they're doing. It just may be, hey, the challenge is that they can just get after you. They can just beat you doing it. Talk about 11 personnel, right? We came into this saying lighter personnel. So what does that change? Well, one thing is wide receiver blocking is crucial. Now, the positive to that is most teams are going to match personnel. Kind of like Grant said, right? You want to get them in the nickel package. So you're going to see extra DBs on the field. Now it becomes, okay, wide receivers versus DBs. I think they're good in run support if they're not blocked. If they are blocked, I think we're good. And that sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but my point is I think our receivers block well. So as long as we're getting hands on guys, I think we'll have success. A guy that's been a huge part of that, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So you want to go lighter personnel but still keep a receiver? Peoples-Jones right here. You can see his block right there on the linebacker. Bam. There's the pin. You pull out with Penei Sewell, and you get a big chunk. So he blocked like a tight end on that play. And again, you're going that lighter personnel. You're still having success. Again, 11 personnel here. So I bring this up because this is one of those cases of man coverage. And last time we played Tampa Bay, it was like, man, how are we going to beat man? It was a lot of Laporta versus Levante David, right? That was a lot of the matchup in that game. Again, Lions on this play. Look at what they're doing. They're going light personnel, 11 personnel. So you start out with Laporta wide, safety takes him on the play. Linebackers, usually for Tampa, stay in the box. So he rolls in. Now all of a sudden, Goff is thinking, okay, this is man coverage. Safety's going to stick with Laporta, and you're going to see David's going to jump out and take the running back. Now, here's what the Lions did later is they started to use Gibbs in the action. So against man, where can the Lions find man answers, right, if it's not going to be just going at Thomas? Well, like this, and it's been a huge part of the motion and pre-snap decision-making for Goff. Sees the motion, checks. It doesn't seem like he's checking with everybody here because there's different concepts for a different look as well. But the check seems pretty simple between St. Brown and possibly Josh Reynolds here that, look, we think they're in man. Let's run this little pick play, little field. See how he tells Saint, then looks back to Josh, lets him know, and there's your alert. Now we're going to still run our crossers. We're still running our concept on the bottom, but the pick play is right here in man coverage. Boom, right there. We're going to create the pick play for the off-ball linebacker and also the cornerback trying to run through, and that's how we get St. Brown open here. So, again, this one was just a straight beater coverage-wise based on what look Goff was able to utilize at the line of scrimmage. Wide receiver blocking is key. So one tight end here with Brock Wright. Wide receiver blocking is key with lighter personnel. Here you go with Josh Reynolds in line here. Watch this block. He's going to pin down to help Penei Sewell pick this up. Then he's going to shoot up to the second level, and he's going to pick up the linebacker. That's big-time blocking. That's what we need. Not about driving him out of the play, and you can see Penei Sewell's like, nice, dude. Nice. That's what he's telling him there. He's like, hey, you did your thing on that one. But that's what it's about, man. It's not about necessarily that, these guys have to pick him up and drive him out of the play. That's not going to happen. A case like this, and I'm saying this because I've seen San Francisco do this, where their DBs will step down, and you're going to notice on the front side here, you see how they slant, how everybody slants inside, is because that corner is blitzing down. So to help out Penei Sewell, Josh sees that, passes it inside to Penei Sewell right there, but now all of a sudden Sewell can't get up to the next level, so Josh has to take it upon himself. And look at how he handles that like a tight end would, like very good blocking there. So he springboards that play as a receiver. So while, they maybe looked at saying, okay, we're lighter personnel, maybe we'll slant on this play. That's where your receivers have to be clutch. Even in 11 personnel, we still have Laporta, we still have Fursker, so one tight end blocking. I just thought this was a good block from Laporta on this play. You can see they're going to go to the sweep. See how Laporta takes his man with him on the play? Zion McCollum, he pulls him out of the play with him. You can see McCollum is seemingly matched up right on the tight end at the snap here, and with him releasing, kind of walking up and then breaking middle, he takes the guy with him, but he also steps up to the linebacker, picks up the block, and even though our lineman falls down, Frank Ragnow, you still pick up a good chunk because of that. Lighter in their number 2 tight end. One way, again, Jason Kabinda, the lead play right here. Now, this was really Penei Sewell on the backside. Excellent block, opened up the cutback lane. Everybody jumps to the front of the play, and all of a sudden, you can see the DTs. They step in front of their gaps. All of a sudden, you open the cutback lane because Penei Sewell doesn't let him get through the backside. And once that takes place, now you have a big play for Jahmyr Gibbs, and you can't deal with this dude in space. This play is just fun to watch, so I put it in here. So, again, lighter personnel, right? What are we seeing? Well, we're seeing, okay, keep an eye on a couple things. First off, single back look. Wide receivers are in really tight. They're really tight split. This is something we'll probably see in this game from these looks, is the Lions doing things like this to also still give help against a 4-man rush consistently, where they can step down and say, okay, give me a chip and then release on the play. Lions will have to set up route concepts to do that. Here's a good one. Now, notice defensively, kind of weird. They're not actually matching personnel here, right? They have front seven players. They have 4 DBs on the play. So they're going base personnel against 11 personnel offensively. That's usually not what you see for most teams, but they're going heavy on defense here. And for the Lions, look how they take advantage of it. It was an awesome setup. St. Brown, again, steps down. He blocks. He seals off side, and he used a beneath route. Very effective. Misdirection. Move the offensive line. Get out into the flat. Let Sam Laporta go. Lions started to get real creative with how they utilized not having, like, your typical number 2 tight end that can also be a big-time receiving threat, yet still getting Sam Laporta open. And we're going to show some good examples of that. You can do heavy personnel with Kabinda. He might not be a big receiving threat, so this is where the Lions can look to open it up and say, okay, let's try to get shot plays. Now, as you see, they only have 3 players really running around on this play. Everybody else stays in to pass protect. We're probably going to see things like this. And still, they get a guy free. It's Vita Vea on the interior, so he still gets free. He hits Goff on this play. This is one of his best throws from the day. But at the same time, you're also going to see the Lions still create kind of the high-low here, where even though they invert into a cover 2 inverted look, so the corner is going to drop to a safety. The flat is then going to roll underneath like this. You see how the edge drops out to the flat like the cornerback normally would. So they still invert it.
Also, we talk about limiting coverage. So they invert, but you go heavy personnel, plus the tight end is usually going to get the safety. So if you're putting a safety down for that tight end in that matchup, now you're thinking, okay, single high safety, it's cover 1 or cover 3. So I got one-on-ones on the outside. So the way they try to kind of combat that is say, no, we're going to invert this, but the safety's going to blitz. So you take the safety out, but they're going to invert this. It's just now as a flat defender, and now you have a cornerback playing safety. It's still not that comfortable for them in this spot, though you change it up, yet the Lions still make sure they have a beater for it, and they have a lot of guys in pass.
To get their shot, they want to go heavy personnel, so they do that, but they also still create the high-low on the play. And then again, Jameson, one thing we saw from this game, and I didn't even show.
Another point I will make is because Goff, again, he's not super mobile-wise, so he's not going to consistently get out of the pocket and throw the ball away if nothing's there, is that Ben Johnson's done a great job of, this works out here because you create the high-low, yet they never really leave Goff in these spots without someone into the flat. So even though there's still 3 receivers, they still give him a check down option, where at very least, he can just throw it over his head out of bounds. But he's always going to have a check down option in these spots, and it's done a lot for his skill set.
Really, any of the clips, Jameson's speed is becoming a real factor. Not even for like this, as the cornerback just one-on-one, giving way too much space on this play and just pushing the blind spot, and he's struggling to sit down on the route. But it's also safety help. You're seeing it in cover 3. You're seeing teams cheat over to him. Now, again, he is playing. He's cheating to the field side. He's cheating to the opposite hash. Other safety's going to roll down. But he doesn't slide really to the middle at all. He stays over top here. Jamison, again, he's being very threatening with his speed. This will be another one of those designs that I absolutely love here. And again, this can beat the coverage. It's just, can you hold up in pass protection? So you see on an example like this. Now, Laporta, with the safety rolling down, seems to kind of try to slow play it before he steps behind him on the play to also probably try to set up, what the number 2 can also be on this play. You can see how the creativity is there. Watch St. Brown's route. Again, we did a lot of this against Baltimore, where on this play, you're going 11 personnel. You bring in the tight end. Defensive backs are going to match, but you're going to have Sam Laporta. He's the first look, middle of the field. Running back to pat. This is where Goff would probably needs to slide a little bit faster on this play. I understand what he's looking at here because he's trying to read it, and then he's trying to set up number 2 out of it. But just slide a little bit quicker. That's something that's going to be helpful, I think, in this one for sure. But in this case, you see how the number 2, again, instead of having St. Brown to sit outside, the way that they're prying open the middle of the field against this team is by having kind of the double move routes underneath, right? You see it on both sides here. St. Brown runs a whip route like we saw with Josh earlier. He breaks to the outside, but to set it up with timing, Laporta goes middle. If the safety in this case steps over, he's that hook zone defender here. All of a sudden, what gets open? Open is right here, right? This is what's Brown working his way right there. So you can see it right here. He just gets behind the flat defender and he can work there. And then also, front side with Josh Reynolds, right? You break Laporta middle of the field. If this off-ball linebacker steps down to take it away, if he does, now you have Josh Reynolds who's sitting the curls. So, okay, off-ball linebacker's thinking, great, I can take off. Corner's got it. And then he runs like a jerk route and he starts to walk back to the middle of the field. So Lions will have to create layers there by running kind of those double moves underneath to get things open against this team. Again, the biggest challenge will just be pass protection in those spots. Now, this is one of the things that I love the Lions start to utilize is running backs being involved in the pass game, especially against man coverage. It's like, finally, we started doing this. How do the Lions do it? Again, heavy personnel like this. It's not like you have a number 2 receiving threat. I mean, Cabinda's not catching the ball. For whatever reason, they put a safety on him. That was dumb.
Really, the one way that I see it working for them putting the safety over Cabinda is because you still leave the off-ball linebacker over the tight end. So if the off-ball linebacker were to blitz, the safety, you see how he's over top on the hash, he could technically step down and still man that up, and they could go cover 0 on this play. So I guess you still get that threat. That doesn't happen. Safety stay deep. They just go cover 1 blitz, bring a 5-man rush. But I guess that's some of the disguise there.
But you put Cabinda out wide. He's still going to take a body with him, right? He's still going to take someone with him. So now the Lions, they were really smart as they said, okay, David on Laporta, he runs kind of a stick knot on this play, and it's like, okay, he probably could have been open. But smartly they say, okay, that's where the number 1's going to go. We bring out Cabinda to take the safety, so now he's no longer mashed up on him. Now instead of trying to force that route, let's utilize Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's utilize Jahmyr Gibbs to go cover 1 blitz, which is something they had been doing. 5-man pass protection holds up here really well, so that's why this gets set up. But if it's still a fast route concept, utilize Jahmyr Gibbs, all right? Even in this game, right? If Fred Warner's on, Sam Laporta in man, right? If he's on him in man, or if he's on him in man, you're like, I don't love that. Okay, utilize Gibbs on Greenlaw. Or like, that's a threat that you can utilize. I think they'll try to go to the corners a little bit more, but it's still a threat that you can open up. And in this case, they said, I don't know about that number 2 linebacker. Lions just let Gibbs go to work on him. And this is a guy that we saw earlier in this game on the wheel route. Like, you can't cover this dude in space. And they started to utilize him. In this case, the Lions, smartly, they put Laporta inside as an inline tight end on this play. So the safety can still take Laporta here. But now all of a sudden, you put Yaya Diaby into the mix with the off-ball linebacker just because of leverage, right? It's just easy leverage. If Laporta takes off and this guy goes to flat, the linebacker can't get out there in man coverage. So now Diaby's in the mix. Well, here's how they take him out of the mix. Lions do a couple things. There's a run fake, right? That's the biggest thing. So first off, they're going to switch release, set up the timing, then they're going to run fake. So first off, run fake right there, boom. Linebacker steps down. So now linebacker is not taking the vertical route. He's passing it off. So he immediately passes off the vertical release to the safety. So safety's like, okay, great. He's going vertical. I got to race over there and pick it up. Second thing they do is they switch off the release. Watch Laporta inline. He doesn't immediately race to the flat to allow Diaby to take him away. On the run fake, he steps out to block. There's the run fake. Diaby sees that. Now Diaby's like, okay, let me go pursue on this play. Safety is now taken, the vertical release. Now all of a sudden you have put this linebacker on Sam Laporta because they switch release with the timing. So now when the play fake happens, you chip, you release into the flat. He naturally can separate. Linebacker now has to get over top, and you create an easy completion for Laporta, and that's the guy you want running in space. And on top of that, you moved the offensive line. So you still move the offensive line, more difficult to get pressure, got Goff out of the pocket, and with them getting pressure with Diaby, you put him in a spot of either drop and take that away, and I'll have room, or you step down, and he just goes right over top.
Now, against a team like the LA Rams, we had a good opportunity to see the Lions try to handle Donald. They did a great job with it. Now, for this game, it may be more so just sending help to KO'd specifically. Obviously, the run game helps. By the way, we nailed the run game scheme in this. Passes like this, cut block, set the screen. I love that, just overloading that blitz, getting the ball out fast. And then things like this, moving the offensive line. And even in a case like this, Donald here at the 3-tech on the right guard, look at what they do. They slide protection his way to give an extra hands to him. They're just keeping extra hands. I don't know if there's a specific player, maybe Armstead, that they feel that way, but they'll get chips, and I would say, if anything, maybe they'll try to slide a little bit, get extra hands just on KO'd's defender, just towards KO.
That's going to be a challenge in this game. It's mainly going to be pass pro. The Lions are still going to want to give help, so they'll have to set up routes that they can still chip on the edge specifically. Lions are going to want to move the pocket, especially on early downs. They're going to want to really move the pocket if possible, especially against a team that brings a 4-man rush. I think it makes a ton of sense to move the pocket, but at the same time, we're going to have to see other guys step up. Wide receiver blocking, especially 11 personnel. You're also going to have to see in the red zone, very impactful, most likely, with receivers. St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, those guys are going to be very big and impactful. Maybe it's Donovan Peoples-Jones time as well to be impactful. And you can see the Lions can create openings, and they did it in this game. It was about pass pro first, though. They can create openings in zone coverage, but passing on early downs, creating movement, rolling the pocket, those kind of things helped out. And then obviously if you can establish a run game on top of that, now those run fakes become a real threat. The Lions had a run game with Jahmyr Gibbs, so finding a run game will ease all of this, especially the pressure stuff. Like I said, when you want to drop back and pass, first and second, when there's a run threat, even if it's not a play-action play, is the best thing to do against this team because they rush completely different when they believe it's a pass versus a run. Maybe that sets up a draw play at some point. When they know it's a pass, they are firing upfield. When they know it's a run, they have to play that initially. So again, if you move the offensive line, they're going to have to play with the flow. If you don't move the offensive line, you still have them first have to say, okay, I got to play my run, and then I can take off on the play. So there still is that little created time. But that's really the key in this one. I think it's interesting. I think the Zach Ertz thing, he's probably just not ready to go because I would assume you'd rather have him in this spot than Anthony Firkser. I would assume. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of special teams thing there, but I would kind of doubt that it's that big of a deal. What do the Lions have? They have Firkser, who's not a big receiving threat, but you can use him by design. Laporta, still a matchup piece. And to be honest with you, as good as Fred Warner and Greenlaw are, I still like man-to-man with Laporta. Like, I could be wrong. I think man-to-man, I still like Laporta, that matchup. I think he could run away from that coverage. I really do. So if they put that matchup, I feel good about it, right? I really do feel good about that. And then, again, if they're putting linebackers on the backs, utilize Jahmyr Gibbs again. Get him into the mix. That's fine. You know, we may see a lot of 11 personnel. We may see a lot of, hey, their biggest weakness is corner versus linebacker, so let's make those guys work in man coverage. Then again, it's a lot of zone heavy. So Lions will have beaters. It's about creating the time to do that, and the run game will help them ease a lot of that. So I'm going to leave it right there. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching.